With Resident Evil 9 right around the corner, we're about to step back into the ruins of Raccoon City, a place that never truly died, even after it was destroyed. Before we return, it's worth looking back into the shadows of its past, because beneath the streets, behind locked doors, and inside buildings meant to protect people, Raccoon City hid some of the most evil locations in the entire Resident Evil universe. In this video, we'll be digging into the past and uncovering the places where some of the most evil events in this franchise occurred. So, let's get right into it. The Raccoon City Orphanage. On paper, the Raccoon City Orphanage was exactly what it claimed to be. A school, a safe place, a building meant to shelter children who had already lost everything. But that story was a lie. Behind closed doors, this wasn't an orphanage at all. It was a front, a facility quietly operated by the Umbrella Corporation, designed not to protect children, but to harvest them. Unofficially, it became known as the Subject Harvesting Facility, a place where vulnerable, undocumented children were used for illegal bioweapons experimentation. No oversight, no consent, and no chance of escape. The kids who lived here weren't students, they were test subjects, chosen not because of merit, but because no one would come looking for them if they disappeared. And when Umbrella needed data, the orphanage provided it. Since at least the 1980s, the Raccoon City Orphanage had already crossed the line, long before the outbreak and long before the city collapsed. To keep those experiments contained, schooling was conducted on site, not for education, but for control. The fewer reasons the children had to leave, the lower the risk of escape. And if a subject ever needed to be moved, Umbrella had already planned for that too. Beneath the orphanage ran a network of underground tunnels, directly connected to the Nest laboratories. Children could be trafficked in and out without ever being seen. Among the children who grew up here were Chris Redfield and his younger sister Claire. After their parents' death, this place became their home. But even at a young age, Claire noticed that something was wrong. Stories didn't line up, rooms were off limits, and people were disappearing. Eventually, she trusted her instincts, and as a teenager, she ran away. Not just from the orphanage, but from the entire city itself. In the years that followed, the building fell apart. Umbrella downsized, employees moved out of the town, and the orphanage was quietly shut down, left to rot and hide its secrets. One of the most fucked up stories that arose from here can be read inside of a file known as Tom's Diary inside the RE2 remake. A child named Tom details how one of his friends named Oliver got adopted from the orphanage, right around the time he began hearing some pretty creepy stories surrounding the place. The journal reads, February 5th. It's been 2 months since I sent that letter to Oliver, and all I've gotten back is nada. Zip. Then again, they're all like that once they get adopted. Betty's living like a king in some fancy folks' home and forgotten all about us. Really thought Oliver was different, that he'd be my friend for life. Guess I'm just a fool. February 8th. Anne sat all the little kids down and told them a story today. She said all the kids that get adopted are turned into food for the boogeymen. That's why no one hears from them again. Not sure where she gets her ideas from, but she's sure got a mind for writing trashy horror novels. February 13th. There's something weird going on around here, and it's not just because of Anne's stories. Don't get me wrong, I've been in worse places, and this place is funded by some big drug company, but why can't we call people or go outside? Why are there so many doctors around? What's with those shots every day? It's almost like we're... February 14th. I'm getting adopted. Me. Most people go for younger kids, so I figured I was too old. But I can't say I'm not a little happy. Who am I kidding? I'm totally psyched. I say goodbye to this place on the 20th. I'm gonna try my best to be a good son. Someone my new mom and pop can be proud of. February 19th. Oliver came back in the middle of the night, all messed up, screaming help me and stuff. I didn't even recognize him at first. His face was all peeling and melted off. He's with the teachers and doctors now. It's just a skin thing, they say. He'll get better soon, and then we can go on adventures together again. I think it's safe to say that the Raccoon City Orphanage will forever be one of the most dark, twisted, and disgusting places inside of Raccoon City, forever stained by the cries of innocent children who had already been broken by circumstance. The Raccoon City General Hospital. On the surface, the Raccoon City General Hospital was the city's lifeline, the primary medical facility serving thousands of residents. And during the 1998 T-virus outbreak, it was the only major healthcare institution still operating. But like everything else in Raccoon City, the truth ran deeper. The hospital was built in 1992 under Mayor Michael Warren's redevelopment initiative, a project optimistically titled Bright Raccoon 21. It was meant to symbolize progress, a modern future, and a cleaner, safer city. The Umbrella Corporation heavily funded this project. Publicly, they branded themselves as a clean company, but privately, they secured something far more important. Through a covert agreement with the hospital's director, Umbrella was granted permission to install a private laboratory beneath the facility, hidden on the second basement level. While local newspapers floated rumors of bribery involving an unnamed pharmaceutical company, no one ever uncovered what was really happening below their feet. The laboratory remained completely undisclosed to the public, and Umbrella made sure of it. Personnel didn't use normal entrances. Instead, they traveled underground, moving through sewer tunnels by boats to access the lab, especially during internal meetings. Doctors upstairs were treating patients. Scientists downstairs were engineering nightmares. Raccoon General Hospital wasn't just a place where people went to recover. It was a place where Umbrella hid in plain sight, building the future of bioweapons directly beneath the city's last symbol of hope. But as with anything with Umbrella, depravity was sure to follow. We can get a better look at the horrors that went on here by some journals that were found inside the hospital. The hospital director's diary reads, September 10th. These patients suffer from gangrene and congestion of their blood at first. Then their mind slowly deteriorates. In the end, there's nothing left of their mind. When that happens, even mercy killing seems pointless. After all, they are already dead. This disease is unlike anything I've ever witnessed. Once the patient's mind is gone, they become flesh hunger monsters and act like wild animals who are on some type of bloodlust. September 18th. Another patient has been admitted to the hospital. He is showing symptoms of the first stages of the disease at this point, but I haven't been able to sleep at all these past few days. I refuse to let these patients become zombies. I'm not just an ordinary citizen, I am a doctor. Even if I die, my clinical charts will contribute to finding a cure. September 26th. We lost most of the doctors and staff during the battle against the zombie patients. It's impossible to maintain the hospital under these conditions, and I know that it's too late for me. I'm beginning to feel the same itchy and hungry desire that all of my patients felt. It's too late for me. A diary of one of the hospital workers also details how the scientists literally took lives for their own enjoyment. This lab is a den of monsters who conduct cruel and barbaric experiments for the sole purpose of taking human life in the most sickening way possible. It's messed up, the world needs to know, but every time I work up enough courage to blow the whistle, I think of Penny and Casey and immediately chicken out. Umbrella owns this town. There was this guy they caught trying to smuggle out company secrets. They essentially fed him to one of the betas. Fed him. I saw the whole thing. I got my wife and daughter into this. I just need to do my job, do as I'm told for their sake. But let this be a testament that I do have a conscience and that I've learned my lesson. The hospital would eventually fall in the chaos of the Raccoon City outbreak, as all the scientists began to perish at the hands of their own creations. Somewhere in the chaos, a colony of leeches infected with the T-virus escaped from the underground laboratory. The exact moment is unclear, but the assumption is simple. They transferred from the body of a dead researcher to a new host. And once they did, they adapted, and fast. These weren't mindless creatures, these leeches demonstrated rapid learning capabilities, navigating through the hospital's ventilation system with almost zero resistance. Upstairs, the remaining hospital staff were still trying to do their jobs. While the city outside collapsed into violence and infection, doctors inside Raccoon General Hospital were desperately working on a treatment. They were running out of supplies, running out of time, and slowly running out of people. Somehow, against all odds, they succeeded. They developed a vaccine for the T-virus, but by the time it was ready, there was no one left to use it. On September 26th, the head doctor was killed when zombies breached the doctor's station. The third floor became a last stand, with survivors' staff barricading themselves inside the nurses' center. Another doctor named Dr. Hirsch tried to save who he could. He restored power to parts of the building, buying precious minutes for a small group of survivors stranded on the floor. But it didn't matter. The leeches eventually found him. Drawn to the scent of blood from his injured hand, they attacked. What remained of the survivors fled downward into the basement's second floor. Here, they were forced to kill Dr. Hirsch, along with the leech swarm that was controlling him. And finally, they confronted the giant leech itself. The Raccoon City General Hospital was supposed to function as a place where people could get the help that they need, but it was all a front, used to hide Umbrella's disgusting deeds, trafficking patients and civilians where they could be brutally murdered secretly right below everybody's feet. The Raccoon City Police Station. The headquarters of the Raccoon City Police Department, a building that was supposed to represent law, order, and protection. Originally, it wasn't even built for this purpose. Back in the 1980s, the department purchased the structure from the old Raccoon Art Museum and converted it into the city's police station. And on its own, this place wasn't evil. It wasn't built for experimentation, it wasn't hiding underground labs, and it wasn't designed as a front. The corruption here didn't come from the walls, it came from one man. Police Chief Brian Irons, a public servant entrusted with the safety of the entire city, but in reality, he was something else entirely. Irons was deeply entangled in corporate corruption, just like many other city officials at the time. He accepted bribes from Umbrella USA, ensuring the company stayed clear of police investigations. Evidence was buried, reports disappeared, leads were quietly shut down. While Umbrella conducted illegal experiments beneath the city, the man in charge of enforcing the law was making sure no one looked too closely. But Brian Irons wasn't just corrupt, he was a complete psychopath. Violent tendencies had followed him long before the outbreak, and during his time with the RPD, those tendencies only escalated. The badge didn't restrain him, if anything, it empowered him. There were confirmed threats, and there were suspected murders, but the true number of victims tied to Irons is unknown. One of the earliest possible victims was his own secretary, hired in April of 1998, gone by June. She had reportedly uncovered evidence of Umbrella's bribes, and shortly after, she disappeared without a trace. Then in August, an Umbrella sewer facility manager narrowly avoided death when Irons pulled a gun on him over a joke. Yes, a joke. That's how fragile he was. And that same August, things got even worse. 8 young women vanished from the streets of Raccoon City, all unmarried, all blonde, all between the ages of 18 and 23. Local newspapers reported the disappearances, but no bodies were ever recovered. Search parties found nothing because they were looking in the wrong place. Irons had a little hobby, taxidermy. His office made that clear. Animal mounts lined the walls, preserved and posed like trophies. But at some point, animals weren't enough. He graduated to human subjects. Hidden within the police station was a secret room, a private killing space. There, Irons used his experience to carefully remove organs and bones, preserving pieces of his victims as keepsakes. And the presence of chloroform among his belongings suggests something even worse. Not all of them were dead when he began. But when the T-virus broke out across the city, Irons finally dropped the act and began to lose his sanity. Irons was informed that the T-virus had contaminated the city's water supply. There was no containing it anymore, no covering it up. Raccoon City was finished. And with that realization, he broke. Believing himself to already be infected, Irons descended fully into paranoia. But instead of trying to save what remained of his officers, he made a decision. If he was going to die, the entire precinct was going along with him. He began issuing confusing, contradictory orders. Officers were told to loot the arms locker and scatter weapons across different parts of the building. On paper, it sounded strategic. In reality, it was a sabotage. When zombies overran those areas, the officers were left unarmed, trapped, slaughtered. And Irons didn't stop there. Accounts suggest he actively hunted down survivors inside the station, accelerating the collapse. One report claims he personally shot Officer Ed in the heart, but his final known victim is the one that cements his legacy. Catherine Warren, the mayor's daughter. On the night of September 29th, she was killed by a single gunshot wound. The sound of her scream echoed throughout the station, drawing the attention of Claire Redfield. Irons claimed it was a mercy killing, that she had been moments away from turning. Claire didn't trust him, but in the chaos, she had little choice but to accept his explanation. What she didn't know was that Irons had no intention of leaving her body behind. He carried Catherine down to the dungeons to prepare her another trophy, but the dungeon had direct access to the sewers, and by that point, Irons was already running on borrowed time. In a confrontation with Claire, a parasitic G embryo burst through his chest, suggesting he was already infected by William Birkin.
My chest! I can't take the pain!
The Raccoon City police station became a place rotted to the core with evil due to one sick individual, a man high off of his own power. He transformed a place intended to be a symbol of justice into a symbol of depravity. Raccoon City didn't fall overnight. It rotted from the inside, an orphanage that harvested children, a hospital that hid bioweapons beneath its foundation, a police station led by a man more monstrous than the creatures outside its walls. These weren't just locations on a map, they were proof that long before the outbreak, the evil was already there. And with Resident Evil 9 bringing us back to the ruins of this city, it's important to remember what really destroyed it. Not just the virus, but the people behind it. If you want to watch more Resident Evil lore, I think you'll enjoy this video. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in a new one very soon.